AITA for ending my relationship on the spot and changing the locks after my girlfriend laughed during my proposal and sided with her mom. Throwaway because mutual friends follow my main, and this already got around. I 33M broke up with my now ex-girlfriend Tessa 28F after what happened on her birthday when I planned to propose. Most people agree the proposal incident was awful. The part people are split on is what I did afterward, and that's why I'm posting. For context, I'm a pretty steady person. I work in operations for a wholesale distribution company. I make good money, I'm not drowning in debt, and I bought my house modest, 3 bedrooms before I met Tessa. I'm not flashy, but I'm consistent. I value quiet and stability. Tessa is social, stylish, and very focused on leveling up. She's smart and can be genuinely fun to be around, but she's also extremely image-conscious and easily influenced by the people around her. She's hopped between freelance/contract work for most of our relationship, and her income was inconsistent the entire time. Early in the relationship, she used to tell me I made her feel safe. I took that as a compliment. I thought it meant she trusted me. Now I think it meant she assumed I'd tolerate anything. The main recurring issue was her mom, Valerie, late 50s. Valerie is divorced and very involved in Tessa's life. I'm not exaggerating when I say they talk daily, and Valerie has an opinion about everything. Where we eat, what we buy, what I wear, whether my living room looks expensive enough. From the beginning, Valerie treated me like a placeholder. Not in a cartoon villain way. More like a constant stream of comments she could later deny as just being honest. You're very dependable. You're a stable choice. Tessa needs security while she figures out what she really wants. You're a good foundation guy. On the surface, those sound like compliments. In context, the message always felt like, you'll do for now. Whenever I brought it up, Tessa would shut it down with the same lines. Mom is just protective. That's just how she talks. You're taking it personally. So I swallowed it, repeatedly. Over time, finances became a point of tension. I want to be clear. Tessa didn't force me to do anything. I offered help because I thought we were building a life together. But help slowly became expected. About a year in, she broke down and told me she had a big credit card balance, a little over $12,000. She said it was crushing her mentally and she couldn't focus. I offered to help her make a payoff plan. Valerie found out and said, word for word, if you're serious about my daughter, you'll handle it. Tessa didn't correct her. I paid off most of it, with the agreement that Tessa would reimburse me monthly. She made a few payments, then stopped. When I brought it up, it became, are you really going to hold this over my head? Or do you want a girlfriend or a tenant? So I let it go because I didn't want to be the guy chasing his girlfriend for money. Then there was the car situation. Her car was fine, just older. Tessa said it made her look struggling and that her clients judged her based on what she drove. Valerie jumped in with, appearances matter. Don't you want her to look successful? We leased a newer SUV. It was in Tessa's name, but the payments came out of my account because it's easier and temporary. Same pattern. Framed as our future, turned into my responsibility, and any attempt to discuss it was treated as me being selfish or controlling. There was an incident a couple months before the breakup that should have been a wake-up call. I came home from work and found Tessa and Valerie in my kitchen with my laptop open. They were planning. There were tabs for furniture, decor, and a resort trip. They had pulled up a spreadsheet I used to track my bills and savings. I asked what they were doing. Valerie acted like it was completely normal and said, we're helping you. Your house needs an upgrade if Tessa is going to live here long term. Tessa said, it's exciting. We're making it more us. Valerie showed me a cart total that was several $1,000s and said I should just click purchase because it was an investment. I said no. Firmly. Tessa instantly got cold and said, you keep saying you want a future, but you act like everything is a negotiation. Valerie called me stingy and said, a real man wants his woman to feel proud. I looked at Tessa for support. She didn't back me up. She just stared at me like I'd failed a test. We resolved it later, meaning I apologized for my tone and agreed to buy a few smaller things. I remember thinking, even then, that I was the only one compromising. Despite all of that, I still planned to propose. Yes, I know how that sounds. I truly believed that engagement would force clarity, that Tessa would finally draw a line with her mom, and we'd become a real team. I also loved Tessa. When it was just the two of us, things could be good. Tessa had been hinting about rings constantly, sending me pictures, joking about her ring size, commenting on friends' engagements. It wasn't subtle, so I saved and bought a ring I could afford that still felt meaningful. I also booked a dinner at a place Tessa had been talking about for months. Upscale, romantic, the kind of place she'd post about. I told her directly, "For your birthday dinner, I want it to be just us." She agreed. On the day of her birthday, everything was fine until her mom got involved. Tessa took a call from Valerie while she was getting ready and immediately looked stressed. When she hung up, she told me Valerie had a rough day and didn't want to be alone. Then she said, "She's going to join us, but just for a little while. It would mean a lot." I said I wasn't comfortable with that, because this dinner was important to me. Tessa accused me of making her feel guilty about her mom and said I was being controlling over one dinner. I should have kept my boundary. I didn't. I said fine. Valerie was already there when we arrived. She was dressed like she was attending an event, not a birthday dinner. She greeted Tessa dramatically and then looked me up and down like she was evaluating a used car. She took over ordering. She corrected the server. She made constant comments about other people's money, other people's lifestyles, and how Tessa deserved more. She told stories about friends' daughters who were dating real providers. She compared everything to someone else who has a boat or owns a second home. Tessa laughed along. I tried to steer the conversation back toward something normal, asking Tessa about her week, her plans, her friends. Valerie kept pulling it back to status, upgrading, and what kind of man Tessa should be with. At one point she said, "Tessa is entering her prime. She needs a partner who can elevate her." I said something like, "We're building a life together." Valerie smiled and said, "That's adorable." Tessa giggled. I felt like I wasn't her boyfriend in that moment. I was a background character funding the scene. When the moment came, I proposed. I stood up, got down on one knee, opened the ring box, and asked Tessa to marry me. For a second, Tessa looked excited. Her smile started to form. Then Valerie made this long, theatrical sigh, loud enough that nearby tables went quiet. She leaned back and said, "Oh, honey." Then she looked at Tessa and said, "Is this really what you want? You can do better than this." She gestured at me like I was an option on a menu she didn't like. I stayed on my knee and looked at Tessa, waiting for her to defend me. That's all it would have taken. One sentence. "Mom, stop." Tessa didn't say that. Tessa laughed. Not nervous, not shocked. A small giggle like her mom had said something embarrassing, but basically true. Then she leaned in and whispered, "Get up. You're making this awkward." I asked again, quietly, "Do you want to marry me?" Tessa glanced at her mom first. Then she said, "I just think we should talk about timing. Like, what's your plan? You know my goals. I need someone who can keep up." Valerie lifted her glass like she'd won a bet. Something in me went completely calm. I stood up slowly, closed the ring box, and put it back in my pocket. I looked at Valerie and said, "You're right." Tessa blinked like she hadn't expected me to agree. I said, louder, "You're right. She can do better." Then I looked at Tessa and added, "Not because I'm less, because you want something else." Tessa's expression shifted to irritation, like I was ruining a birthday photo op. She actually said, "Can you stop? Can you? You're being dramatic." So I put cash on the table for my portion I barely ate and said, "Happy birthday." Then I walked out. Tessa blew up my phone immediately with texts accusing me of being childish, embarrassing her, and making a scene. The weird part is, I didn't feel angry on the drive home. I felt clear, like I'd been holding my breath for years and finally exhaled. When I got home, I looked around and saw how much of my house had quietly become Tessa's staging area. Her shoes, her products, her decorations that Valerie picked because they looked expensive. And I realized something. If I tried to break up gently, this would turn into weeks of arguing, crying, manipulation, and Valerie showing up to mediate. I've lived that pattern every time I tried to enforce a boundary. So I did what people call nuclear. I packed Tessa's belongings. Not in a rage-throwing way. I didn't destroy anything. I just moved fast. Clothes into boxes, toiletries into bags, her work gear into bins, and anything sentimental into a separate box so it wouldn't get damaged. I also packed Valerie's overnight bag that had been living in my guest room for emergencies. I stacked everything neatly on my covered porch. Then I called a locksmith and had my locks rekeyed. Before anyone asks, the house is solely in my name. Tessa was not on the mortgage, not on utilities, and never established residency in a formal sense. No address change, no lease, no shared bills. She stayed over a lot, yes, but she still used her mom's condo as her legal address and her mail went there. After the locks were changed, I wrote one note. I didn't write a manifesto. I didn't list every dollar. I wrote one sentence. You said you could do better. I'm agreeing with you. Please don't contact me again. I taped it to the top box. Later that night, Tessa and Valerie showed up and started banging on the door. Tessa was crying, yelling that I couldn't do this. Valerie was screaming that it was illegal and that she'd call the police. I didn't open the door. I didn't respond. Eventually, they left and took the boxes. The next day, I did the practical cleanup, canceled the extra card on my account that Tessa used for groceries, changed streaming passwords, removed her as my emergency contact at work, contacted the leasing company to remove my payment method from the SUV payment since it was in her name. I also sent Tessa a single email so there was a record saying she could pick up any remaining items by appointment within 2 weeks, otherwise I'd consider them abandoned. I did that to cover myself, not to be petty. She replied with a long message calling me abusive, saying I used money to control her and that I punished her for one comment her mom made. But it wasn't one comment. It was years of being treated like a resource. The fallout got worse when Tessa showed up at my workplace a few days later. She got past reception by saying she had something important to drop off. Then she started crying loudly outside my office and telling anyone who looked that I threw her out like trash. Security escorted her out. After that, mutual friends started taking sides. Some said, "Finally, you stood up for yourself." Others said, "Changing the locks was too harsh." Tessa's sister said I punished Tessa for her mom and that I should have given her time to move out. My own sister told me it sounded cold, even if she understood why I ended it. I keep getting the same question. Why didn't you just break up and let her collect her things normally? Because I genuinely believe if I did that, I'd be stuck in a cycle. Crying, promises, Valerie showing up, guilt, and then me being pressured into talking it out until I caved. That's how every boundary conversation went in our relationship. This time, I didn't want a negotiation. I wanted it finished. A few extra clarifications people keep asking when they hear the story. 1. Why propose if things were already bad? Because I was naive and thought commitment would fix the dynamic. I thought engagement would make Tessa choose us and stop letting her mom treat me like a placeholder. I realize now that respect doesn't appear because you bought a ring. 2. Did Tessa have somewhere to go? Yes. Her legal address was still her mom's condo. She has family and friends in the city. She wasn't homeless because I changed my locks. 3. Was the note necessary? Maybe not. I wrote it because I wanted one simple line that explained the reason without inviting a conversation. 4. Do you regret anything? I regret ignoring the early signs. I regret letting the finances blur. I regret apologizing when I should have held firm. What I don't regret is leaving that night. So here's my actual question. Aita for ending the relationship immediately, taking the ring back, changing the locks that same night, and leaving her things on the porch after she laughed during my proposal and sided with her mom? I can accept that it was harsh. I just don't know if harsh automatically means wrong. One of the reasons this is messing with my head is that, in the days before her birthday, Tessa acted like everything was normal. She was sending me selfies in dresses asking, "Which one do you like?" She was talking about what dessert she wanted. She was asking if we could do a weekend trip soon to celebrate her birthday month. Yes, she did the whole birthday month thing. Meanwhile, I was in full planning mode, making sure the reservation was right, making sure her friends were lined up for the after-dinner meetup, hiding the ring box in a spot she'd never look. So when people tell me you should have handled it calmly, I keep thinking, I was calm. I was calm for years. I was calm while being disrespected in my own house. I was calm while paying bills that weren't mine. I was calm while her mother treated me like an unpaid internship. That proposal incident wasn't the start. It was the clearest summary. Some people asked if Valerie ever said anything worse than dependable. Yes. There was a holiday dinner where she told me, in front of her extended family, "You're the kind of man women marry when they're done having fun." I remember laughing because I didn't know what else to do, and Tessa laughed too, like it was a harmless joke. Afterward in the car, I told Tessa that comment hurt. Tessa said, "She didn't mean it like that. She's just old-fashioned." I said, "Old-fashioned doesn't mean cruel." Tessa got annoyed and said I was too sensitive. That's been the dynamic. If I was hurt, I was the problem. Another question, did you ever talk to Tessa about boundaries with her mom? Yes, multiple times. The pattern was always the same. I'd say something like, "I need your mom not to comment on my finances," or "I need you to back me up when she insults me." Tessa would start with, "Okay, I understand." Then she'd add, "But you have to understand she's my mom." Then it turned into, "I can't choose between you." Then finally, "You're making me stressed. Why can't you just let it go?" So I'd let it go. Then Valerie would do it again. Rinse and repeat. I also want to be honest about the safe thing. In the beginning, I liked hearing it. I liked feeling like the stable one, the reliable one, the person who could handle things, but over time, safe started sounding like predictable, and predictable started sounding like replaceable. Valerie would say things like, "You're a good catch for someone who wants a quiet life." That, in some way, always felt like a warning. You're not what my daughter really wants. And apparently, she agreed. After everything happened, one of our mutual friends tried to mediate. He called me and said, "Dude, Tessa is saying you blindsided her. She says you guys were happy." I asked him, "Did she mention what she said during the proposal?" He hesitated and said, "She said her mom got in her head." I said, "Okay, and what did Tessa do?" He said, "She said she laughed because she was nervous. That's the part that drives me insane. Because it wasn't nervous laughter. I know Tessa's nervous laugh. This wasn't it. This was amusement. And even if it was nervous, if someone humiliates the person you love while he's on one knee, your reaction shouldn't be to giggle and ask him for his 5-year plan." Another mutual friend, a woman who has always been polite but not close, told me later, "Honestly, she talked about you like you were a step, like a phase." She'd say things like, "Miles is perfect for now." I didn't even know what to do with that information, because it made too many things click. The way she'd get more affectionate when she needed something. The way she'd get colder when I tried to talk about money. The way she'd refer to my house as your place when we argued and our home when she wanted to redecorate. People also keep focusing on the locks like I went full psycho. I didn't trap her inside. I didn't throw her into the street with nothing. I didn't touch her physically. I didn't damage her property. I changed the locks because I didn't trust that she and her mother would respect my space once I said it was over. The night of the proposal showed me they didn't respect me as a person. Why would they respect my house? I've also heard the argument that legally it might have been questionable if she lived there. I looked it up. Again, she never established residency. Her ID address is her mom's. Her mail goes there. She has no lease and paid no bills. I wasn't tossing out a tenant. I was ending access for someone who was basically a long-term guest. Still, I'm not pretending it was gentle. It wasn't meant to be gentle. It was meant to be final. Lastly, the ring. A couple people asked if I returned it. Yes, I returned it. I didn't keep it as a trophy. I didn't. I got my money back and put it into my savings because I'm not setting myself on fire financially for someone who laughed while her mother disrespected me. That's another reason I'm posting. When I think about how much money I poured into this relationship, it makes me angry at myself. But when I think about that moment at the table, her checking with her mom before answering me, it makes me feel grateful I found out before I signed a legal contract with her. So, yeah, that's the story. Aida, if you made it this far, thank you for listening. Let me know in the comments whether I was the asshole or not. Your perspective actually helps more than you think. If you enjoy real relationship stories like this, consider liking the video and subscribing for more.